Love these days can be a difficult venture, whether you're a spring chicken or have trouble putting in your dentures. So let me tell you about my story, or quest, and how I won the heart of the one I like best. Guaranteed to work for any age or any gender, though to some, a slight mind bender. Well, just stick with me, and I'll show you how it's done. I got the password to your heart. I took a guess, it wasn't very hard. Like the little kid who figures out how to start an old go-kart. Oh, I got the password to your heart. Used to think fingerprint readers what it takes to get inside, but a love like yours you kept secure, so it's key'll not confide. Face ID is just flirtation without multi-factor authentication. The secret code, you kept it classified, but I got the password to your heart. I took a guess, it wasn't very hard. Like the guy on Jeopardy's final round who thinks he's really smart. Oh, I got the password to your heart. The retinal scan failed to work the first time, and I cried. Then I tried to sing voice recognition, but that just hurt my pride. Infrared illumination for biometric identification. The only thing that worked were these keystrokes I tried. It's a capital L and a lowercase O, a hyphen and a V and an E. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a star and a B and a T. Backslash, ampersand, question mark, C, hashtag, $, elemental P, semicolon, birthday, I color, phone number, another dash, and a right parenthesis. Semicolon, birthday, I color, phone number, another dash, and a right parenthesis. I got the password to your heart. I took a guess, it wasn't very hard. Like when Babe Ruth knocked that ball right out of the park. Oh, I got the password to your heart. It's a capital L and a lowercase O, a hyphen and a V and an E. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a star and a B and a T. Backslash, ampersand, question mark, C, hashtag, $, elemental P. Semicolon, birthday, I color, phone number, another dash, and a right parenthesis. Semicolon, birthday, I color, phone number, another dash, and a right parenthesis. I got the password to your heart. I took a guess, it wasn't very hard. I only used 2 fingers just like Django Reinhardt. Oh, I got the password to your heart.
Well, welcome to the Wispy Pop Music Acoustic Radio Podcast Series. I'm your host, Todd Middle Initial C. Walker, and you have been listening to the song Password by Kevin Neidig. And Kevin Neidig is out of the Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania area, and he just happens to be the 2023 Central Pennsylvania Music Award winner for Best Americana Artist. And he is on the phone with me right now. Hi, Kevin.
How you doing, Todd?
I am doing well, and, you know, as we mentioned before we went on the air, it's been a long time, well before COVID ended up on our shores, that I've seen you perform. I've always loved what you do. You are a phenomenal guitarist, and that song there and your guitar part shows that you have a really good thumb on the right hand.
Thank you.
And it's very, very difficult to do. I've gotten to the point where I can do it, and I would say in a mediocre way, but it's something that you probably learned when you were younger. Am I correct in that?
Man, I think the first time I learned to fingerpick, I used to, when I first started playing, there was a jam session I used to go to, like a old time / bluegrass / old country kind of jam. And some guy showed up and he was playing Alice's Restaurant. And I think I was maybe 14 at the time. And I thought that it was the coolest thing in the world. And I don't think I fingerpicked anything before then. And he was fingerpicking. And I was like, you got to show that to me. So that was my first experience with fingerpicking. And, I'm more of a flat picker. So, fingerpicking is sort of takes the back seat to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I practiced classical stuff and folk stuff and all of that too. So that's all thrown in there.
Well, how did you start playing an instrument in the beginning? How old were you?
I was 3 when I started. And
really?
I started playing. Yeah, I started playing the keyboard when I was 3. My grandparents had an old keyboard, like the double stacked kind of organ thing, and so I would just sit there and they would plug headphones into it, and I would just push buttons and see what they were playing, see what my grandfather would play, and I would just try to mimic it, So I had like all this ear training because I would sit there for hours and just play, and I would figure out songs like In the Mood and Beer Barrel Polka and all of that stuff just by ear, And I think In the Mood was the first song I learned when at least they told me I was playing it when I was 3. So that's the first tune.
Well, that's a very early age to start your musical career.
It's pretty young. But yeah, I moved from then. I went to drums. In the 6th grade, I started playing drums in school. And that was mainly just like snare drum and orchestra and things like that. And from there, I got kind of, I got a little frustrated with the drums because family would come over to the house and like, oh, Kevin, play your drum. Like, okay. So I'd set it up, and it's this whole thing. You got to set up the stand and put the drum on it and on my music stand and stuff. And I was really just practicing rudiments, so I was going that kind of stuff. And a few bars in, then everybody would just start talking amongst themselves and just ignoring me. And I thought, this drum stinks. Like, what's the point of playing if I'm just going to be ignored?
Now, did you ever get into playing a full kit at any point?
I was in a rock band, heavy metal band, and our drummer had their drum set in my basement. So I would get on that kit every once in a while and just play, but nothing really formally or anything like that. It was just kind of for fun.
Now, do you think having basically starting on the keyboard, but gravitating to playing the drums, do you think that has helped with your rhythmic ability with your right hand playing guitar
Totally.
or banjo?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's, I've been teaching guitar and a bunch of other instruments for like 30 years. And I see people that have played drums and other things before they come to guitar, and ones that don't. And the ones that come at guitar green have a different mindset. Like they think about what their hands are doing. I don't know, like this kind of technical thing, instead of just bringing it back to rhythm, because you've got the basic forms of music. You've got rhythm and you've got melody, and rhythm is the most important. Mm-hmm. You have to have both, but rhythm is the most important. And I think that if you think in terms of rhythm and you can count rhythms, or you can at least feel them, then you just kind of layer the melody and the chords and everything on top of that, rather than looking at it the other direction, which just doesn't work.
Well, and especially if you're a singer, because playing rhythm on a guitar, or really any instrument, but we're speaking guitar at the moment, it's much easier to sing as a solo artist over the rhythm rather than trying to sing the melody and play the melody at the same time, because you'd probably end up colliding at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are some things that are easier to sing and play at the same time, but some things you got to work at. Is like, this is kind of, my hands are doing something different than what my voice is doing. So I really got to work on that.
Now, did you gravitate from the drums right into guitar, or did something else come in between?
No, I went from there to guitar. My dad, well, my grand, and like my grandparents knew like 3.5 chords, and my dad knew how to play like the power chords and knew some rock songs and Aerosmith. And
I think I lost you, so I will give Kevin a quick call back here, and let's see if we can reach him. This happens sometimes. Cell phones are absolutely wonderful. Here he comes. You're back.
All right, we got cut off. Sorry about that.
No, that's quite all right. It does happen. I was just telling people when we were in our dead spot there that cell phones are absolutely wonderful. But, every once in a while, like I cannot make phone calls from my house unless I have an extender that's hooked up to my Wi-Fi, because I must be in that one little dead spot between towers and so forth. And if I'm on the phone in the house and I walk to my car and get in the car, if I drive 3 feet, people go, hello, hello? They can't hear me. And it just drops it until I get down the street. So cyberspace is a wonderful thing, but it does happen. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I said about my grandparents knowing some chords and my dad knowing some AC/DC and stuff like that. And when I was playing drums, the snare drum in orchestra, I noticed like we would play concerts and things, and all of the people that were playing the melody instruments got all of the attention. Right? Like the rhythm section was like no attention at all. Like they didn't care about us. We weren't doing anything.
and you're usually sitting or standing way in the back.
Right, all the way in the back. And so I thought, well, I want to play something that has melody, and I knew the guitar had melody, and the music I was listening to all had prominent guitar players. And I was like, okay, well, I want to try this guitar. And my grandfather's guitar, he had this old archtop harmony guitar, and we were never allowed to touch it, And I don't know if I said I wanted to play it or something, or he just brought it out, and he showed me how to play a G, C, and a D7 chord on it. And I was like, okay, well, fingers go here, and like this. And he's like, okay, and this is how you strum. And he showed me like the boom check strums, like boom check, hitting the bass notes. I'm like, okay. And in the first hour, I was playing songs and switching chords and all that kind of stuff. And then I showed Dad what I was doing, and he's like, oh, okay, well, here's this Aerosmith song, and I was like, okay, I'm watching him how to do it, and I picked it up, and I think in the first hour I learned everything that he knew on it, and that was the end of it. But it's like after teaching for so long, I didn't realize that picking that instrument up so fast was not normal.
Very highly unusual. Yes.
I mean, I've had students that took 6 months to play a G chord. I mean, obviously they're not practicing, but it's like, wow. That's an extreme, but it happened.
Now, did you? And you said you played. You're a drummer in a band. Now, did in that band were you the guitar player, or were you doing other things?
Yeah, I was the guitar player. I played electric guitar then. I don't really touch electric anymore, but that's what I did. Yeah.
Now, when did you start singing, or were you doing that in the band?
No, we had a singer in the band. I would do the occasional harmony vocal, but I guess, singing full time, like doing it for real, probably didn't happen until maybe I was 17, 18, something like that.
Because you didn't think you could do it, or there were other people around you who you thought did it better, so you just didn't?
Yeah, I actually don't know. I mean, I was in chorus in school, in high school, like 10th, 12th, or yeah, 11th to 12th grade. I think I was in chorus. And so I was singing then, but it wasn't anything that was really serious. And I think the biggest, I was in a duo called Boxology, and we started in 99, 98. I forget what year that was, but I was singing a lot in that. So that was like I think one of the first biggest pushes for me to sing a lot more.
Well, you have a very clear vocal, and that can't be said by about a lot of people. And so
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's very pleasing. And the one thing it does, and in guitar, we talk about, like in a bluegrass situation, the banjo cuts through the mix, or something cuts through the mix in a band situation, and acoustic guitar, especially if they're mic'd, kind of gets lost. But your vocal being so clear must be very, very good, especially when you're in an ensemble situation, because everybody can hear Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved singers that sing high,
mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, well, this guy's like the Americana Artist of the Year from Pennsylvania. What gives? But like my favorite singers: Ronnie James Dio, Jeff Tate from Queensryche, Michael Kiske from a band called Halloween, and a whole bunch of other sort of German bands. Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson. Like I love that kind of voice. And I don't know, always just tried to mimic that, and rather than just kind of sing in the baritone range that a lot of people do, I made a concerted effort to extend my range so that I can get a little like in that higher range and more clear stuff, because that's what I enjoyed listening to.
Now, how did you go about extending your range?
So being in chorus, I took a lesson from a guy, this like 80-year-old dude who showed me a couple of things, and he was amazing. I forget what his name is at this point, but none of that was really getting me to where I wanted to go. I found that I was really pulling my chest voice up too much. I would sing songs and my voice would start to hurt. It would get very fatigued after a set, and let alone playing a whole evening of music. And then I came across this guy called Brett Manning, who is a vocal coach in Nashville. And he's got a whole series of things online that you can check out. But it was really, he can't say this because somebody else owns the copyright to it, but it's basically like singing on the volume of speech, like mm-hmm. speech level singing, and understanding the mixed voice, understanding the chest voice and the head voice and what they do and what does that mean. And so anyway, I had this whole program. It was like 12 CDs, and driving in my car, I would practice vocals in the car, going like to and from places. So like twice a day, I was doing like whole workouts, doing all that stuff. And I did that for 2 years, and man, it made a gigantic difference.
Now, was it doing scales, like starting at a bum, 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 bum? You're going up
yeah, it was all of that stuff, but it's thinking about it in terms of using the vowel sounds, and even things like getting a rasp out of your vocal, like getting the vocal fry, like the mm-hmm. So like the vocal fry is where the vocal cords are just barely touching. And so like what he says is that you just get them to barely touch, and that is the beginning of your tone. So if you start there, you can get that very light and not loud and not pushed kind of sound. And so a lot of things kind of build from there, where you're building up the strength of the chords, so that when you go high, your voice isn't cracking or breaking into falsetto.
Now, I would imagine, listening to your singing and how clear it is, that you don't have sinus problems.
I don't.
Because that is, from someone who does, that really becomes a problem when singing, because it limits the range, and and basically it's almost like sticking your fingers in your ear and singing. You know how that sounds? And
yes.
When you have clogged sinus passages, that's what ends up happening. So kudos to you for not having them. Well,
I am not a doctor, but I do play one on TV. And, I'm being vegan. A lot of the meats and the dairy and all of that kind of stuff that causes an inflammatory response. The products that we use, the dust in the house. There's so many things that contribute to that. Like we really shouldn't have any mucus or anything whatsoever, but so many people wake up in the morning and they're just like,
hacking
they got
and coughing.
mucus.
Yep.
They got it. Yep. Yeah, hacking and coughing. Get it out from the end. But really, that shouldn't happen at all.
Now, how long have you been vegan?
I think it's been 4 years now.
And what led you to that?
It's funny because one day I was like, it's like as a kid, my grandparents on both sides of the family hunted, and they tried to take me hunting, and I just can't stand it. And I can't kill anything. I mean, if there's a bug in the house, it's got to go in the bug cup, and then it goes outside.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. Like, I'm not going to kill it. And so one day I had this realization that I was this gigantic hypocrite. That how can if I can't kill, say, a cow with my own bare hands to get the meat out of it to make a hamburger, how can I feel good about someone else doing the same thing where I don't have to do the killing, but I'll eat it, right? And I was like, I can't do that. That's like, and since I had the thought, I couldn't live with the thought of just being okay with that. And I told my wife, Steph, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I've been thinking about not eating meat and going vegan and stuff. And she's like, that is so weird. I've been thinking the same thing. And in that moment, instantly we switched.
Oh, wow.
And haven't gone back.
Yeah, it's unusual for two people in the same household to come up with the same idea at about the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it was exactly the same time. And we hadn't been talking about it at all. It was just like a complete random thing.
Now, since I've known you, you've always been thin. But did you, when you switched over to being a vegan eater, did you lose weight or trim up or anything, or not really? No, not at all. I mean, I'm pretty much the same. I mean, I've working out and things like that, I've put muscle weight on, mm-hmm. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. And I know a lot of vegans eat a lot of bread and candy and things like that because that's mostly vegans. It's like, it kind of defeats the
purpose. Right.
Well, it's sugar. It's not made from beef,
Yeah, right. It's good for you.
Yeah,
it's organic sugar.
Yeah, it's like following behind at the supermarket and the person in front of you. And we can't talk about weight necessarily, but their cart is full of diet sodas and diet this and low sugar this. And, the amount of stuff in that cart, even when I drank that stuff, I don't think I could drink that much in a year. And that's probably their weekly shopping. Yeah.
I mean, we all have the responsibility to choose what we put in our carts. But when you look at the grocery store, 90% of it is stuff that we shouldn't be ingesting.
Yeah, that's correct.
And, I'm kind of like a nerd. Why research stuff and learn about stuff like on a constant basis, but I can't expect other people to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And, all the cereal aisles, like, oh, this is breakfast cereal. This is what I'm supposed to have. Like, okay, well, do you know about this and this and this? And you know, this one ingredient does this and this, and you shouldn't take this. And like, well, like, how can you expect somebody to get a college degree on nutritional facts?
Yeah. Well, speaking of putting things in your cart, let's talk instruments. And
cool.
your main instrument is a guitar, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what other instruments? I know what you play, some of the things you play, but what other instruments do you play on a regular basis?
Yeah, so guitar, banjo, mandolin, ukulele, bass, percussion things. But that's my main. I would say like the big three is the guitar, banjo, and mandolin, and piano, of course. But I spend most of my time with those top three.
And I'm a lot of guitars out there, and they may have even gone on your website, which is kevinneidig.com, and Neidig is spelled Neidig. And they're going to ask, what's your number one guitar?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have a Collings guitar that's a 12 fret slope shoulder, and it's awesome. It's got a wider fretboard on it, which I absolutely love, and it's just this big sound. And that guitar was one that got crushed by a falling speaker, and somebody put it all back together, and it sounds better now than it did before, and it sounded great before. And then I have a Husson Dalton, which is just an astonishing instrument. I mean, Husson Dalton guitars are amazing. I've never played a bad one.
It's interesting because they're well known in small circles.
Yeah.
They're a global quality boutique guitar firm that, unless you listen to someone who plays one or whatever, not many people. You mentioned Husson Dalton. They ask, "Is that a restaurant?"
Right.
and yet they make some spectacular instruments, not only sound-wise but looks-wise.
Yeah. This one is a Cocobolo back and sides, and it is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it. In Pittsburgh, there's a guitar shop called Acoustic Music Works, and the guy there, he's like, "Well, what are you looking for?" And I said, "Well, I want something that has a little bit more of like an open, airy sound, rather than just kind of like a tight mid-range. I want sort of some of that airy sound." And he's like, "I know what you're talking about." And he goes in the back and he brings this Husson Dalton out, and he opens it up and hands it to me. And I strummed a C chord on it, and my eyes just like went gigantic. I was like, "Oh my God." Oh my God. It's pretty remarkable. I just got, maybe a month ago or so, I just got a baritone guitar that's a McAllister.
Oh yeah.
Which is a boutique guitar for a builder in Washington State. And it's I don't know, it's just pure magic. I can't even tell you how much I love that guitar. And usually I've played baritones before, and they can kind of be a little jangly, especially that B string kind of gets a little twangy.
Yeah.
And I play this thing just like a normal guitar, and it's tuned down to A. So normally they're the down to B, low B, and this neck is a little bit longer, so it goes down to A.
Wow. No, I don't know too many people who go below B on their baritones. I tune mine to C sharp just because it fits some. Like if I want to sing a Neil Young song, I have to use my baritone tuned a step and a half down in order to hit his notes. I don't have
right.
I lost my tenor years ago. You still have yours.
I plan to keep it. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Well, I have a very good friend who lives here in the Frederick area, and he just purchased a custom baritone. And he called me and he said, "I know you put pickups in guitars." He said, "But do you do any other kind of work?" And I said, "Well, not really." He says, "Could you look at this? I'm getting, some string buzz on my baritone." And I'm thinking, well, even at C sharp, and I use medium gauge on that. I tried the baritone strings, and they were just too thuddy and the string tension was too tight, tuned to C sharp. If I tuned it down, it would have been fine. And things didn't work out, trying to get together. And then he finally said, he detuned it for the weekend. When he got back, he tuned it back up and it's fine. And I went to that luthier's website, and he has videos, 2 or 3 of people playing his baritone guitars. And I said to my friend, I said, every single one of those guys, the guitar has a little buzz to it. It's kind of the nature. You tune that string so far down, it's pretty floppy.
Yeah.
And it could be,
these are not floppy.
No, and it's a lot of it's technique, as you know better than I.
Well, yeah. But, I'll say I'm not endorsed by anyone. So anything, if I say, hey, you got to check these out, it's just because I like them. Santa Cruz Guitars makes guitar strings, and they make baritone strings, and they don't do it by gauge. They do it by tension. Mm-hmm. Have you seen them?
Yeah, I put a set on my Fairbuilt guitar, and it's the Dadgad set. And okay. Since I tune all my guitars down to D anyway, a full step down, and I've used them in the past, and they worked fairly well. When I used them before, I did it strictly I was writing a review on them, so I didn't leave them on that long. But I wanted to try them because on this particular guitar, it has a 26-inch scale length. Excuse me, and so the string tension, even tuned to D, is a little tight. And I thought, well, I'm going to try the Dadgad low tension. And so far, they're working really well. So do you like yours?
Well, yeah. So I got the baritone strings, but what's cool about them is they wind the second string.
Ah, I did not know that.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah, I would think it would.
Yep. They're great.
Did it feel weird in the beginning, though?
For like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because we're so used to like how things feel.
Right.
It's very tactile when you play guitar. Especially, I play a lot with my eyes closed, so it's all about the feel. And so when I go to that second string and you feel whining, it's like, wait, is that the third string?
Yeah.
But I was like, no, that's not it. And then it was done. So,
well, I'll have to try those because I'm liking the Dadgad version, and I'd be curious to see how much of a difference there is, because obviously Dadgad is not tuned fully down. It'll be fun. I'll try some of those.
Yeah, let me know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also play, you said banjo. In fact,
I play claw.
I'm sorry?
I play clawhammer banjo. That's my main style.
And you teach that as well, I think.
Yeah.
And I have a Deering Good Time banjo that I purchased probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I have seconds of brilliance on that thing. I mean, just 2 or 3 seconds, and then I'm done. And I tried learning clawhammer myself, and I'm sure you'll agree with this. It's like anything else. It's repetition, 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 and you slowly get better as you go along. And sometimes you actually have to put it down for a day or two. When you come back, you're better than when you left it. But I got to a certain point, and I just didn't. I guess I lost interest because I didn't think I was getting any better. And I thought, I think I saw, and this was even before COVID, I think I saw on Kevin's website that he teaches clawhammer. I should contact him because it's not that long of a drive from Frederick to get up to where you are.
And I don't teach in person anymore. I just teach online.
Well, you do it like a Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It works great.
Yeah, and you find it works just as well as if the person's sitting right in front of you?
Yes. I mean, and the bonus is the whole lesson is recorded.
Well, that's true.
So I create a playlist for everybody they can access all the time of every single lesson from start to finish. And so it makes it nice for them because if I say things and during normal lessons, people forget. And at least now they don't have an excuse.
Well, and you do, let's see, I'm on your website right now. I'm going to go to the store, and you have mugs and hats and masks and spiral notebooks and things like that. But scrolling down way to the bottom, you have, for one, you have brand new Boundless Guitar Video Workshop, Flat Picking Classical Music Video Workshop, Clawhammer Banjo Duets, which is, I assume that's not necessarily an instruction one, and then Advanced Fingerstyle Work and Chrono Mantra. Is that's probably more performance, I would imagine.
That's a meditation CD, actually.
Oh, okay.
It's got like binaural frequencies and things like that on it.
Gotcha. So people could, if they didn't want to do the Zoom, they could purchase some of these workshops and get some instruction on those, I would imagine. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think any of that, like you said, with the Clawhammer one, that's definitely not a beginner's book.
Right.
There are some things that are easier to play in there, but there's no like, here's how you do it. It's like you know how to do it. Here's some tunes playing melody to normal fill tunes on the banjo. The Advanced Fingerwork guitar book is not for beginners either. It's like a kind of a study in playing scales and arpeggios, starting in a low position of the neck and working up like 2 or 3 octaves in one thing. So it's a lot of position shifting kind of stuff. And I think those workshops I had done, they were like online workshops that I recorded, and I just kind of put them into a video. So, yeah. Well, so I don't really have anything in book form that's beginner stuff. I usually, at least for now anyway, I keep that stuff for just one-on-one, which I think is better in the beginning.
Oh, I would agree, because if someone has a book or an ebook or whatever, it's so easy to get sidetracked. But if you have someone who's going to hold you accountable, and who can respond to and listen and go, you didn't practice this week, did you? Now, when you're talking about advanced guitar work, here's a little thing that's on your homepage for people to listen to. It's only 17 seconds long. It's called Riff Number 1. We'll let people hear it. I love the way you end with a chord. That's good. Now,
yeah, that's from. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
That's from a guitar course called Riff Monkey. Mm-hmm. And that's on it's all Sound Slice stuff. If you're familiar with what Sound Slice is, but you would go on there. It's basically like it's a website that allows you to have tablature on the screen with a video, and then there's like a little scroll bar that goes across the tab, so you can see the notes in the tab as it correlates to the video that's happening. It makes it really easy because you can kind of loop, say, just one measure and just have it play that over and over and over again, and then you can slow it down. And so all these like cool learning tools all in that one piece of software.
Now, I do want to ask you about your courses and teaching. The way you teach, was it a slow process for you when you first said, I might teach people how to play guitar and stuff? Did you sit down and come up with a lesson plan? How did you go about getting from day one to where you are now?
I had a guy, like I said, I was going to that jam session when I was a kid, and I had this guy who was, 35 years old, and he wanted to learn how to play AC/DC tunes. I'm like, yeah, okay. And he's like, I'll come to your house and I'll pay you $5 a lesson. You can show me. And I'm like, okay. And I went to my mom. I'm like, can we do this? She's like, yeah. So we'd go to my basement, and I'd show him how to play like Back in Black and stuff like that. And then he'd hand me a $5 bill and go. And, so that was my first experience. And it was like, oh, and it wasn't anything that I set out to do. It just kind of started happening, where people were asking me, oh, can you teach me how to do this? And I just kind of figured it out along the way. I don't have like a strict lesson plan. I take every student as they are, because if they are I don't know, for instance, let's say some 50-year-old comes to me and they're like, well, I've never played guitar before and I want to learn how to do this. Well, I'm not going to really teach them how to sight read standard notation and go through a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I just want them to get enough that they can hurry up and play some songs for their, for their friends and stuff, or sit at home and just enjoy playing a couple of songs that they enjoy, without really getting into the really into the weeds with theory too much and stuff. Not that we don't do that, but that's not my first priority. But if somebody is young and they're like 10 years old, 12, whatever, then I'm going to say, well, you need to learn how to read music, and we're going to do this, and this is the book. And people learn differently too. So I have all these different books that I use, and some move pretty quickly and some don't, and some teach different things. And I mean, I've got a whole bookshelf, just tons of music books that I've gone through. And I just kind of pick and choose to what I think that particular student needs.
Well, the fact that you're still teaching, and I think you said after 30 years, you must enjoy it.
I do. I mean, I enjoy performing much more. Mm-hmm. But I love teaching because it's, I don't know, like if you teach somebody, there's got to be an intuitive kind of thing. You have to be able to look at someone and not only adjust to their personality, adjust to their likes and dislikes, but you also need to be able to diagnose what they're doing wrong so that you can make it better. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I've seen people, other teachers do things, and it's like, well, this is the way I do it, and you just need to do this. Right. There isn't any kind of like, I'm going to get into the student's head and try to figure out how I can get them to do what I do, instead of just going, well, if you're not doing it right, it's your fault.
Well, no, and that to me, that would be the best way. It's sort of like when you're hungry and you haven't gone grocery shopping for 5 days, and you open the refrigerator and there's nothing specifically jumping out at you, and you say, okay, I'm going to work with what's here. So what Right. you're doing then is taking the student, whether they're beginner or intermediate or advanced, and saying, okay, what's here? What can I make? And how can I help them become better? Am I correct in that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's tough these days because, I mean, it's getting tougher for teaching. As long as I have, I see people wanting more of the instant gratification. Yeah. Instead of seeing where I want to take them. Like, okay, I see where you are, and this is where I want you to go, but it's going to take us probably 2 years to get there. Like, what? Yeah. I can't get there next week.
Well, it's, having run open mics for so many years, and I don't do it any longer because I just did too many of them, but I enjoyed every one of them. And some of the open mic performers who were strictly an open mic performer, they would work on a song for 2 hours before the open mic, and they would perform it with the music in front of them or try to remember it. And then I started seeing them just before COVID hit, and they'd be advertising that they were playing at a winery or they were playing somewhere. And I'm thinking, gosh, they must have gotten incredibly better in the last 2 years. Mm. And no, they didn't. They just jumped, and it's, you need to be proficient enough to become a good performer, and depending on the venue, an entertainer of different levels, because if you're a musical wallpaper, you're not necessarily an entertainer because that's not your job. But you need to have all facets of that, and it needs to be at a certain level before you should go out and expect people to pay you for it. And so, Absolutely. And so I like your idea of, taking someone, and I do agree with you, the instant gratification, and that's the unfortunate part of our modern computer world. There's so much stuff on the internet. I mean, I remember listening to albums back in the day, trying to figure out how to play something. And then when I discovered a music shop in downtown Boston that had sheet music, I was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And today you just Google the song, how to play it, and bingo, you get 15 different versions of it, and it's instantaneous.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, I growing up, I learned so much and still do all by ear.
Yeah.
Yes, I can read music. I can do all of that stuff. But nothing beats being able to listen to a song and then just play it. And it's much faster than just reading the sheet music. And the only way you get there is by training your ear, by listening and trying to figure it out. And I think that when there's so much stuff like, oh, well, here's how you do it. I mean, that's good. I mean, we need that kind of stuff, obviously. But when it's all just that, then the ear doesn't really get trained the same way. And I mean, I remember when I was like 16, I had a friend of mine that was playing gigs and he was doing open mics like you did. And he was like, "Oh, well, come out and play with me." Like, okay. And he'd pull me up on stage and I'd be standing behind him. And he said, "Oh, we're going to do this song. Do you know it?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, well, you'll figure it out." And he'll just start playing.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know the key. I don't know the song. I'm plugged in. I'm turned up. I can't see his hands.
Yeah.
All I can go by is what my ear is hearing. And I was able to do it. I mean, it was stressful, but I did it. And I think that a lot of people are not going to have that ability, that kind of a skill to be able to to jump into a situation like that. And you need that.
Well, the better thing for him to have done was to say, we're playing this song in the key of C 145.
Right.
So that you knew, you might not know when the chord was going to change, but you could figure that out pretty quickly as long as you knew which chords he was going to be centering the song around. So,
right.
But I have a couple friends who are very, very good at that. What I call ear. Their ear is so good. Whoops, and I didn't mean to hit that quite yet. I'm going to play that in a moment, but I was reaching to turn off I had an incoming phone. I was trying to turn it off, and my hand hit the mouse. So I started to play that. Well, let's go there, actually. When we were talking about clawhammer banjo, you have this video on your site, and was it "This Moment is Inevitable," I think is the title of it, isn't it?
Yep.
And it's strictly instrumental. We won't play the whole thing because it's 4 minutes, 46 seconds, but I want people to hear what someone who plays clawhammer banjo really cleanly sounds like. Is that fair?
Okay.
All right, here it is. It's not really a traditional clawhammer. It's more melodious, but you are, in a way, playing clawhammer on that, aren't you, in a way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely clawhammer. I do, it's just not like old-timey music.
Right.
I mean, I play that, but, when I wrote that song, I was messing around. I was doing some different things and I think it was a B minor tuning. I was experimenting in that. And then this kind of like, haunting minor Middle Eastern sounding epic song started coming out.
Now, No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that when you play clawhammer, everything's a downstroke. You know, you're downstroking with your middle or your index finger, and you're down with the thumb. And sometimes I will pick up for certain things that most clawhammer players don't do. So you get a little bit of a different sound because there's a different attack that comes from doing that sometimes.
Well, and I'm not a mandolin player, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a clawhammer or old-time banjo picker. But I know that many mando players in groups, they do that downward stroke that I call it the chuck, you know, and it's percussive, and it is a downstroke. They use the combination of the down and up when they're playing lead lines or melody lines. So is it kind of consistent between the two instruments? It's more downstroke than not. I'm probably totally wrong.
Yeah, no, the mandolin is a lot of alternating. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you listen to something like a Sam Bush kind of mandolin rhythm, where he does a lot of that chopping, so Sam Bush was a drummer before he was a mandolin player too. So you can hear that, all those rudiments and things coming out in his rhythm playing. And it's more than just a boom, check, boom, check, boom, check, boom, check. There's other things going on in between those beats. But yeah, on the banjo, it's all, I mean, aside from my little weird picking up with the finger, it's all downstroke. And then all of the other eighth notes that happen in between there would happen with like a hammer on or a slide or something like that. It's kind of magical because like when I saw somebody play clawhammer banjo for the first time, I just heard all of these notes coming out of the instrument, and it didn't look like the hand was doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was like, what is this? How is this happening?
Yeah,
so I had to know how to play it.
Yeah, because the hand is kind of crimped. You don't see the fingers move because it's the fingernails generally that's hitting the string. So it's almost like a flick in a way. I know it's not because it's supposed. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's supposed to be a wrist movement rather than a flick, right?
Yes. Yeah, you don't want to flick your fingers.
Yeah, that was my big problem. And that comes from playing guitar for so many years because I use that flick when I'm strumming without a pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And the weird thing, especially if you play fingerstyle guitar, you're used to having the thumb play the low note.
Yeah.
But on the banjo, the thumb plays the high note. So that weirded me out in the beginning because I was so focused in on the sound I was hearing, so much with the ear that would play that. Like, that's not right. And I just couldn't get that bum-ditty rhythm. And I just had to, like you said, repetition. And all of a sudden it became like riding a bike. Like as soon as I got it, I got it.
Now, how do you tune your banjos? Do you tune them lower than normal, or you tune them in what most people would consider standard?
It's different. Like standard tuning, like your open G tuning, I'll do. My favorite is double C, which is C G, C D with the high G stays the same. But then there's like modal tuning or they call sawmill tuning or G modal tuning. I'll do. There's a bunch of tunings on the banjo, and a lot of times, like you think about these old dudes that sit in the Appalachian Mountains when they're playing on the porch by themselves. They're figuring out these tunes that the fiddle players are playing, and they're trying to figure out what is the easiest way I can play these notes. So they go into these crazy tunings. So you can basically play these tunes with one finger,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's a lot of crazy tunings out there.
Now, how often do you play the ukulele, or ukulele, I guess is the correct pronunciation?
When I was teaching it, I was playing a lot more. I don't really touch it anymore unless if I'm recording a song and I want uke on it, like some kind of thing, then I'll pick it up and put it on. But it's not something I practice. I think I've practiced it enough to get the ins and outs and some of the little techniques that you can do on it. But yeah, I basically use it as texture in recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, like I've got a guitar that has Nashville tuning or high strung tuning, they call it. And, it's like, I don't practice that. I just, put it into the mix if I want that sound on there.
Well,
So,
when you record, excuse me, and I'm assuming you record at home, you have your own studio set up?
Yep.
Do you do all the instrumentation, or do you have other performers coming in and help you?
I mostly do everything myself. Is it The Long Road? I think my album. No. Wait. Can't Go Back. Sorry, or I've Been There. That's the name of the album. That one has Bruce Campbell, who played upright bass on that. But yeah, everything else I'll play all of the instruments. I really like doing that. It keeps it consistent because I have an idea of what I want it to be in my head. And sometimes trying to get other people to play what I want can be a struggle. Mm-hmm. So I'll just avoid that confrontation and just do it myself.
Now, what do you use? What's your setup for recording? Microphones and, what program do you work with?
So right now I have a Mac Studio that I record on. I have an Apollo 4X, which is a universal audio interface. And they have their own DAW, which is called Luna. And I used to use Logic all the time, and then I moved from Logic to Luna just to try it out. And I quickly fell in love with Luna so much more than Logic. So that's all I use now. And microphones, I have some pretty crappy ones. Microphones are expensive.
They are.
And just like everything else, it's like, okay, here's a microphone that I want and it's like $1,500 or it's $2,000 or something. It's like, man, I got to save up for months and months and months just to get a microphone. But there's this guitar that I would really like at the same time. You know what I mean? So it's always this either or. And, but over the years, like I said, I've got some crappy mics that I just don't really use, but I have an AEA ribbon mic that I love. It's is it 84A, 88A? I don't know. It's the one that looks like a pill.
Okay.
It's kind of based on one of the old Sony or one of the old RCA ribbon mics from like the 40s or something. And it just sounds great. And I've got a Royer, it's like the 122. It's a ribbon mic too, but it has you can use phantom power with it. Mm-hmm. So it has the preamp built into it, which is nice. Those are my two expensive mics. And then I have an AKG, something that I use for vocals, and it's not great. And I just recently got two of the Universal Audio pencil mics, and something happened to them. They're actually coming back from the shop tomorrow. I had to send them back and get them repaired, but those are really nice. I mean, they were like $400, and it really upped my game. I had a couple of pencil mics, the Samsons, and they were like $130 for two microphones, so not very expensive. And man, I had such a hard time trying to get those things to, I don't know. There's always like these high end frequencies that would be kind of shrill, and I try to tame that down, and it would just kind of ruin it even more. And these UA mics don't really have that as much, but the room is treated. I've got stuff on the walls. I've got some JBL studio monitors, and they're not the best, but for the budget they work.
Well, I had watched your video before I reached you on the phone of you doing Glenn Campbell's Wichita Lineman, and you can see the soundproofing panels behind you with the guitars lined up, and off to the right of the screen is one of your banjos, but. What are you recording in a situation like that? Because we cannot see the microphone or microphones. Are you using one of the ribbon mics and it's picking up both the guitar and the vocal, or do you have like a shotgun mic coming down at you?
No, I try to keep the mics out of the picture. I want it to be like as natural, like you're just kind of sitting in front of me and there's nothing going on.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, just an aesthetic thing, but it's just, what did I use for that? It might have been, I think it was just one mic. I think I used my AKG. Yeah. And I run that into the Apollo and I do some, post-production on it. So it's not, I put a little reverb on there. And I just try to get any kind of resonant frequencies out.
Now, since you're picking up both the vocal and the guitar, do you place the mic slightly high so it's not out in front of the guitar, it's up a little bit so it catches more of your vocal? Because a lot of people who record,
Yes.
when they record on their iPhone, they set it down on the coffee table, and then they send me an MP3, and you've got this loud guitar and this voice kind of in the background, and there's no way I can EQ it because it's one sound file. So I would imagine, yes, so you are a little bit higher on the mic to be able to pick them up in a kind of a balanced way.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I also have a secret weapon.
What's that?
So there's a, the company Isotope, they make plugins and things.
Yeah.
So they have a thing in the Ozone mastering plugin called Master Rebalance. And it's so cool because if I record vocals and guitar on one mic, I can take that and it knows. I mean, it's not absolutely perfect, but for this kind of thing, it is, because it'll take the vocal and I can turn the vocal up and down even though it's a mono file.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I record it, I'm like, man, that was a great take, but the vocal is quiet. I just throw it into Master Rebalance and boost it up a few dB and boom, it sounds perfect.
Well, you get a very clean recording sound to all of, and I'm assuming of the CDs that I've listened to or some of the videos, like you said, that's all you recording in your home studio, and you get a really good sound, especially on the guitar. And I know you're a guitar whiz, and so that's probably the sound of the guitar is probably very important to you, and it comes across that way. I mean, it's really, really good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I like the mixing thing has been like something I absolutely love, but it's also kind of the bane of my existence because I'll record something and I'm like, man, that sounded great. And I'll listen back and it sounds terrible. I'm like, what happened? And, it's just like this ongoing learning process of what mics to use, the mic placement. Should I use compression? Should I not use compression? What frequencies are sticking out? Oh, like, 3.5K is too much and it's getting this kind of sound. I got to turn that. All of that stuff is just kind of maddening. But yeah, like I've listened to albums that have, to me, the best acoustic recordings ever. And I'm trying to match that.
Yeah.
in my studio. That's not like, it's just a small room upstairs and I know these other great recordings were recorded in a larger room with beautiful sounding rooms. So I do what I can. David
Gray from England recorded his White Ladder CD, which was his most popular, from his bedroom with the window open. And I've never been able to hear it, but they say you can hear cars driving by and things like that. And I think it was on GarageBand. I could be wrong about that, but it was in his bedroom at his house. So you can get really good recordings in a fairly simple setup in your home, as long as you get soundproofing. That's the big one, because so many, as we notice, we see a lot of these instructional videos, they're performing it in their kitchen, and you get this hollow, echoey, because sound is just bouncing everywhere. And I love reverb to a point when it's added, and unless it's a big performance hall where you get the natural reverb, I don't want to hear something where there's no soundproofing, so you get a clean signal. And you seem to have really mastered that, so congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the reverb in a room, if you get the slap,
yep,
where it's bound, that just will ruin everything. I mean, you'll get phasing, canceling frequencies and all that kind of stuff, but you get a larger space, the slap goes away, but you just get this beautiful wash.
Yeah.
And that took a long time to understand that. I mean, sound is an interesting thing to me.
So what's in the future for you? I'm looking at your calendar, and of course, July is pretty much over. You've got a mandolin ensemble coming up on the 13th of August in Dillsburg, PA, and you've got an online guitar warm-up program. But so what's your plan as far as live performing moving forward? And I know it's been a slow growth after COVID.
Yeah, playing out a whole lot more. Things are like I said, they're starting to move a lot more. I'll be in Connecticut this weekend. The mandolin ensemble thing's going on. I'm in the middle of recording a new album. A lot of people. Go ahead.
I was going to say, tell people why you're going to Connecticut.
Oh, so the Connecticut thing is Falcon Ridge Folk Festival, and they have this thing called the Emerging Artist Showcase, and people send submissions, I assume from all over the world. I don't know if it's just national or not, but they judge it, and they pick 15 people from that list to showcase on the main stage, and then they are chosen. I think they pick 3 people, maybe it's 4, but they pick those to come back next year and actually do sort of like a songwriter in a round kind of thing as like a full main feature. And the ones that won last year are actually getting booked as a group. So they're getting all these other shows based on that whole thing. So it's kind of interesting. So I was selected for that, which is actually the second time I've been selected. I think it was like 7 years ago I got selected for that.
And
so that should be fun.
Yeah, and that's this coming weekend.
Yeah, that's Friday.
And what part of Connecticut?
Goshen.
I'm assuming it's probably in the northwest part of Connecticut, but I could be wrong. I'm not exactly sure where Goshen is. And I'm from New England, but you can't know every town, right?
Yeah, I'll have to wait for Apple Maps to tell me.
Well, I wish you the very best of that. I hope it'll be a fun experience, but I hope that you become one of the 3 that they invite back to play on the main stage next year. That would be so cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you'll have to keep me updated on that.
Definitely.
And I thank you so much for joining me today. And if people want to know more about you, how can they reach you? What's your preferred way of communicating with people or getting your news out to people?
Definitely go on my website, kevinneidig.com, and sign up on the mailing list there. That's the best way. You can find me on Facebook. Send me a friend request or whatever on Facebook. YouTube, my YouTube channel is acousticwisdom.com, and that's usually where I post all of my videos. I've got some like bluegrass flat picking things that I just put out, and music videos and all that kind of stuff is on there. But yeah, you can contact me through my website if you're interested in lessons. If you're interested in the guitar warm-up program, I do that every second Saturday, and that's a lot of fun, and that's for anybody, acoustic, electric, whatever. Yeah, I think that about covers it.
Well, thanks again for chatting with me, Kevin. It's been great catching up with you. Like I said, I haven't seen you. Gosh, I think it's probably like 6 or 7 years. And I've always enjoyed watching you and listening to you. And I marvel at your guitar virtuosity. Let's put it that way. And how easily you do it. Because whether it's difficult for you or not, you make the rest of us think you're just doing it as if you're walking to the car to pick up the mail or something. You know what I mean?
Well, I fooled him once again.
Yep, absolutely. Well, listen, you have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will hopefully chat soon and find out how the Falcon Ridge goes.
Definitely. You as well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Kevin. Bye-bye now.
See ya.
Well, that was Kevin Neidig. Great conversation. He's a wonderful guitar player, and as you heard on some of the little track there about the instrumental with the claw hammer, and I would call it kind of boutique claw hammer playing. Just wonderful stuff. And we're going to end the show with his song, and if I've got it correct in my little button here, this is his song, Minor John.
When Minor John and Thomas Poole were setting blast for fossil fuel, a tiny fuse no workman knew was waiting laid down in that hole. It was close to quitting time, Monday evening in the mine. Let's blow this hole, an easy one, before the working day is done. John was one of the blasting gang. He was the black powder man, poured a gallon in the hole. His time had come, God bless his soul. No time to wait, they acted fast. They pulled him back after the blast. What was said from lookers on, they could see John's jaw was gone. Ring a bell, say farewell. I'm not too long on this earth. Fare thee well, that sounds my knell. My love to you, for what it's worth. Twas Friday night in 1888. By his side was his soulmate. Now John's wife has no one but 2 daughters and a son. The largest one for many a year. That funeral shedding many tears. John won't see 41, but I'm here now to sing his song. Ring a bell, say farewell. I've not too long on this earth. Fare thee well, that sounds my knell. My love to you, what it's worth. One last thing before I go, what I'd like for you to know: don't risk your life, don't risk your soul, digging up a rich man's coal.
The Wispy Mop Music Acoustic Radio Podcast Series is produced by me, Todd Walker, at the Wispy Mop Music Studio in Frederick, Maryland. All the music on the podcast is played by permission from the artist. If you're enjoying the series, please feel free to share the link, wispymopmusic.podbean.com, or you can find it on all the podcast channels, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, etc. And thanks again to Kevin Neidig for joining me today, and we'll catch you folks later. Thanks so much.